Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be teaching you some of the basic Excel functions and their practical use using BPO or call center data. So let's start with add. So it's always start your function with an equal sign. So add is just like a simple calculator wherein if you want to add two or more numbers, say 1000, and then you click the plus button, and then 80 plus 50 or 60, 70, then whatever numbers you can add numbers. There's no limit there, so it's really like just a simple calculator if you want to add several two or several numbers, and then it will give you the sum when you click enter. But at the same time, you can also use add if you want to reference to cells. So say for example equal sign, and you want to know the total number of calls of Peter and John, so you can click the cell and then plus button and then Peter, and then you click enter and you know their total calls. Now, to make it simpler, we can also use the sum function. So for the sum function, we can just simply highlight cells that we want to add up. So for example, we want to get the total number of calls for all of the agents. So equal sign, and then you type the word sum, and then open parenthesis, and then it will guide you what you want to add. So or which cells you want to add. But in this case, you just have to highlight all the cells that you need added, and then just simply click enter. You don't need, you don't even need to add the closing parenthesis, because once you enter it, it will automatically add the closing parenthesis. It auto corrects. So in that case, the total is 514, and when you highlight that, double click that again, it will show you the cells that you're adding up. And then also another quality check is you can highlight that if you want to, if you don't want the to use the function, you can highlight that, and then here at the bottom of Excel you will see average, count, and sum. So sum is 514, which is exactly what you are showing here as the sum of all the calls. Now for the subtract function, say for example we have two missed calls here. Let's just put it that way. Okay, so say for example, you want to know the answered calls. Out of 50 calls, 2 were missed, so you just need to get the total number of answered calls. So simply use the subtract function, which again starts with equal button, equal sign, and then the calls, number of calls, minus the missed calls. And then it will show you it will calculate for you the difference. And then you can double click this so it gets copied all the way down, or you can also just simply copy it and then highlight this and then paste. Okay, again, there are several functions or several ways to copy cells, but those are the two main ones. All right, so now if we want to use the multiply function, say for example, for every call you are given, say, a total of $5. So now since $5 should be copied in all the cells or rows from 2 to 9, what I did was to highlight those rows, those cells, and then I typed the dollar sign and $5, and then I am going to press Control and Enter so it gets copied to all the cells that I highlighted. So now I am going to, let me move this. All right, now we need to get the total bonus for all the calls. So let me add a header here, total bonus. So it's $5 for 50 calls. So it's simply equal sign $5 by multiplication function. We are going to use the asterisk sign, asterisk, and the calls, and then simply click enter, and then it will show you the product. So I'm going to highlight that again, to just spot check. Make sure you double click some of them to make sure that they are getting the correct references. All right, so that's your bonus. I'm actually going to add the same function here to get the total bonus. So I'm going to copy that, and then I am going to paste it here because it's going to show me the sum of all the bonuses. Now, since this is in a different format, the shortcut to use the same format is to just copy format, click Format Painter, and then click the cell where you want that format to be copied to. So next, say for example, yes, that's a total bonus, but you'd still want it to be divided equally among all your agents. So let me actually combine that with CountA and divide. So let me count first. Let me use CountA first. So CountA, what is the difference between count and CountA? So count will show you or will count the numbers in the cell. So let me highlight this, and then it will tell you the number of cells with numbers. So if we manually count that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 cells with numbers in it. But then if I use the same function to count the number of, say, texts in the cells, I can drag this, by the way, the entire thing, the entire box, or the entire reference. I can just simply drag it and then drop it to the cells that I need counted. But then in this case, if I click enter, it's going to show 0 because none of these cells are in number format because they are all in text form. So now we can use CountA to count the number of non-empty cells. So let me add A here, and then it will show me 8 this time. Now this one can be used for both numbers. It will show you, it will give me the same results, both numbers and texts. Unlike count, it will only count numbers. Now, why wouldn't you want to use CountA all the time? Because sometimes you just want to, quality check your work and see if there are some numbers or cells that are not showing numbers, but it's supposed to be numbers. So it's functional for quality checking or other purposes too. All right, so I said earlier that we want the bonus to be divided among all the agents equally. So now that I have the number of agents in my roster, I am going to divide the total bonus, this, and then by division function, we are going to use the slash. Instead of the divide symbol, we are using slash, and then divided by the number of agents, and then click enter. So it means 300, each of them is going to receive $321.25. All right, so that's for divide. So now the next functions that we are going to discuss are min and max. So they are helpful if you want to know the least number, in this case, number of calls that you received for this period, or if you want to know also the maximum number of calls. So based on this, we should see min as 30. So I am going to type the formula. That's equal sign and then min for minimum. Hold on. And then open parentheses, and we are going to highlight the cell range where we want to see the minimum number, and then just type enter. So again, that's 30, showing us when we manually look at it, the minimum number is 30 for K. Now, as for the maximum, that should be 100 if you do the manual checking. So formula is equal sign max and then open parenthesis and then the same cell range and then enter. So what does it say? It helps us in figuring out how many number of calls we receive in a typical day or period. So that's from between 30 and 100 calls. All right, so now we're done with this, we're done with this. Now average. So we know we'd want to know the number of the average number of calls that we received. Maybe this is the calls that you received for one day. So you'd want to see the average for that day. So you the formula is average. As in you type the whole word and again highlight the number of the cells that you want to get the average of. Now we can do the same for missed calls. So you can just copy that and paste that under missed calls. You can also do the same for answered calls. So what does it tell us? So on average, we are receiving 64.25 calls, but we're missing 5 calls. So that's a total of 58.75 calls. That's on average, but you can also, just for quality checking, you can also copy your formula in answered calls that gets a difference between calls and missed calls. Now, concatenate. By concatenate, we mean we put cells together. So, say for example, in this case, we have first name and last name, and we want the full name instead in one cell. So, I am going to use the concatenate formula, which is concat, and then open parenthesis, this and this. I just highlight that. Oops, wrong. There you go. But then there is no space in the middle. So how do you do that? Let me just adjust the column. So here's what we do. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to highlight first the first cell, and then I'm going to add the and button, the and symbol, and then quote, space, quote, the and, the ampersand symbol, and then the last name. So now it has that the space in the middle. So at the same time, there is another formula that you can use. So it's simply the ampersand symbol, equal sign, Peter, and you want a space in between. So everything that you are going to add in between, you have to add the quotation mark. So open quotation mark, space, closing quotation mark, and then the ampersand symbol again, and then the last name. So you can use either of the formulas. All right, now for the if function. So for example, we want to see which agents are excellent based on the number of calls. So we have a condition that the call should be more than 80 in order for them to be considered excellent. So that logic can be used with a function. So equal sign and then if this call, so logical test, it's going to tell it means what condition should be met. The calls should be greater than 100, and then what should it return if it is more than 100, and then it should always be enclosed with quotation marks. So quote, let's say excellent, Otherwise, so comma, sorry, so the logical function or the condition that should be met, this cell should be greater than 100, and if it is met, it will, and then comma, if it is met, it will return excellent, comma, otherwise, so what if it's not more than 100? So otherwise you can use, or let's say good, and then you click enter. So since the call is not more than 100, then it only returns good here. Now I am going to copy this, double click, I need this. Uh, I said more than 100 and nothing is more than 100. Now you can change the function. Say it should be more than 80. That's what I said actually. Sorry. So 80. And then I am going to copy the same. So now only Jen Diaz and May Rogers are considered excellent because their calls are more than 90 or more than 80 for that day. So that's what if. There are other functions or conditions wherein if can be functional or helpful for you. So that's just one of them. Oops. Now for CountIf, now that you have um, their status, say for example, now you want to know how many of them are excellent and how many are good. So now we are going to use CountIf. So CountIf. So it will tell you which range to look for. So you are going to highlight that and then comma, and then you are going to count excellent. So this formula is telling you want to count the number of excellent from that range that you selected. And then I'm going to click enter. Now I can simply copy this all the way to the next cell, but if you notice, if I double click this, my reference changed. So there are two ways to do that. So I can just move my reference and then just click that in order for the other for this cell to be counted, because again, if I don't do that, it will only be counting 5 good statuses instead of 6. Because when we copy our cells, the references also change. So when we copy it to the next row, it will become B3 to B10, B4 to B11, and so on and so forth. Unless we use this one that I am showing you, I am going to move it there. So it goes back to the same reference, B2 to B9. Or, let me undo that. You lock the cell. By locking, we mean use F4. So the $sign B and $2 and then $B, $9, it means it is going to lock the reference in both cells or columns and rows. So maybe we can have another video for that, but if you want your reference to be locked, that's what you need to do, and then now you can copy. Why do we need to do that? Because sometimes there may be a lot more statuses there, maybe A, B, C, and then D statuses, and you don't want to use the first method that I did, that every time you copy it, you will just move the reference cells, and it's not practical. That's why in your first cell, you just lock the reference first before you copy it to the next cells below it. All right, so that's for CountIf. And then Vlookup. Now say, for example, there are only a few agents that you want to get the details of. So let me paste that as value. So I want to get Peter Jones' number of calls, or their number of calls. Only these specific agents. Now that's where VLOOKUP comes in, or it can become handy. So VLOOKUP, and then what value are you looking for? I'm looking for Peter Jones, this cell, and then comma, where are we going to get that from? I am going to get it from the full name because that's where Peter Jones can be found, and then I am going to highlight it all the way down to the last agent, and then I need, say for example, the number of calls, right? So even if you actually add it all the highlight it all the way to the bonus, that's okay, as long as you know this reference. You see the number 4 there, 9R times 4. You need to know, you need to take note of that number because you are going to need that later. So let's say I am going to highlight until here, and then I'm going to release it, and then comma, and then the column index number. That's what number 4 is. It means which column should it return. So calls is in the 4th column, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it's handy that you look at that number that I showed you earlier, because sometimes the columns can be long, or the table can be long. So you need to know the column index number. So I'm going to add number 4 because that's where the calls will come from. And then I am going to click add comma again, and then it will, the range lookup, it's always 0. It means exact match. So that's the formula for VLOOKUP. Again, it's looking up this value, looking up Peter Jones from which table array, this table array, and then what's the column index number? It's 4, and then it should be an exact match. Now I can copy that here, but you look what happened. It again changed the reference because I did not lock my reference cells. So I should be locking my table array C1 to J9. So I'm gonna lock those before I copy. All right, so there you go. The table array is now locked. So Peter Jones, some quality checking. Peter Jones, yes, 51 calls. Mary Donalds, 69 calls. Jen Diaz, 90 calls. So you're good there. All right, so what is SumIf? So say for example, we want to get the summation of bonuses of all the excellent agents and good agents. So we are going to use the SumIf, and then the range where you can get the excellent from. So I am going to highlight that again. I'm gonna lock it this time. So you see B1 and then B9 are now locked. And then what is the criteria? I need to find, or I need to get the summation of only all excellent, and which cells should I get the summation of? We said we want to get the total summation, total bonus. I'm going to lock that again because I don't want the table array to change even if I copy it under to the cells below this cell that I am calculating. So for all excellent, let's try. So both excellent, we have 450 and 900 and 500 bonuses, so that's a total of 950. Now should we need to change the format? So again, you just click one cell that you want to have the same format of, click Format Painter here under Home, click Format Painter, and then you click the cell that you want to format. So now it's $950 before I copy it to the next cell. So at least I don't have to do that to the next cell again, because I've already formatted it, and that's the same thing that I am going to do in the next cell. So I'd rather do it here now before copying. All right, so that's SumIf. Now for current time, let me actually add some columns there. So for current time, there are several functions. So first, we use the keyboard shortcut. So it's not going to start with an equal sign. I just need to click the control button and then the semicolon. So that's the time, the date today. And then if I want only the time, then I'm going to click Control, Shift, and then colon. Now, what if I want both in one cell? I am going to do Control and then the semicolon, space, Control, Shift, colon. Then click enter. Now I have both date and time in that cell, and it's 10:40 p.m. Eastern time, November 10. All right, so this one is static. It's not going to change because you did not use a function or a formula. But if you wanted to change, then we can use two formulas. So number one is equal and then today, and then open and close parenthesis. It will give you the date today, and then if the date changes, it will always be calculated according to the date today. And then you can also use now, open and close parenthesis. The difference is it will also give you the timeline, the timestamp. So I use these formulas every time I'd want to calculate, say, for example, the length of time an agent has been with the company. So every time I open the file or every time I refresh the file, it will calculate again the number of days or months or years the employee has been with us. So that's helpful for us when we use or when we want to calculate that type of data. All right. So, well, that's about it. I hope you were able to learn a few things from this tutorial. I am going to upload the sample file so you can also practice. Have a great day.